Hello, I'm Otto, and welcome back to the Dyson Sphere program. So in the last episode, we set up some strange matter using the miniature particle colliders, and we needed that for the graviton lens, and the graviton lens we needed for space warpers. So the space warpers, in my opinion, is the first major item that's going to carry us into the late game, and in this episode, we're going to be creating a farm for the dark fog. So we are obviously not in the game, and the reason why is because we're going to be using Sandbox mode to create this blueprint. So why am I using Sandbox mode? Well, the reason why is because there are a lot of things that we don't have access to at the moment, and we kind of need to have access to them to filter them. So this is purely because we don't have the ability to use filters, and once we create a blueprint for this, any of the filters that we don't have access to, once we create this in the world, even though we don't have the items that are accessible, it will still give us the correct filters. What that's going to allow us to do is make a blueprint that we don't really have to babysit or pay attention to. So once we start setting it down, it'll be good to go. And yeah, so we're going to jump into a new game. We're going to enable Sandbox mode, and we don't really care about anything else. We're just going to jump into the game. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to enable unlimited energy. That will prevent us from having to listen to some obnoxious thing once we unlock the technology. So we're going to unlock all.
Research complete.
And I like to just go through and delete everything in our inventory. Remove the clutter. So there's a couple things that we want to enable. One is going to be the lay all foundations. So I'm going to bury all the veins, lay a foundation. We're going to give ourselves unlimited energy. There's a couple of other things you can do. I think this one... Yeah, let's make sure that we don't take anything with us. Okay, so in Sandbox mode, there's a couple of tools that you have access to. One is obviously painting the world as is. There's obviously a dark fog base over there. That's not a big deal. So we're going to give ourselves some free items. So you do need to check this. So there's obviously things that we're going to need a lot of, like the belts. We're going to need some sorters, and we're going to be exclusively using the pile sorters. So we need a few of those. We need some power towers. We're going to have to bring some power with us, so mini fusion power plants, that's a must. And we're largely going to be using the implosion cannon. So you can use the implosion cannon if you want. You can use the gauze turret if you want, or you could use the SR plasma turret if you've made it that far. This blueprint is more or less compatible with all of those. There's some, little tweaks here and there that you have to make, but nothing major. So we're going to be using the implosion cannon in the world that we've created. We're also going to need some missile turrets. You would need to use either the missile turrets or the plasma turrets. These are the items that we're going to be using exclusively for space defense. So yes, the missile turrets can attack things on the ground, but we're going to be filtering out the ability for it to attack ground targets. That is going to largely be left to the implosion cannon. And obviously I have not mentioned the laser turret, so we are not going to be using the laser turret at all. I highly suggest that you don't use this. And the reason why is because when you're farming the dark fog, the goal is to kind of level the dark fog. And the way that the dark fog levels is based off the amount of damage that you do to them. This also includes overkill. So if you dealt, let's say you dealt 300 damage to a unit that has 50 health, it's going to treat it as though you hit it for 300 damage, even though you only effectively did 50 damage. The laser turret only does pretty much exactly the amount of health that they have in damage, so you're kind of crippling yourself by using these if that's what you're using. Okay, so we're also going to need some BABs, the battlefield analysis base. We're going to need some signal towers. So I haven't really talked much about the signal towers and even the BABs. So we've used the BABs up to this point to... We've used it to help build things faster, but that's not really the function of it. So the function of the battlefield analysis base is, one, it has its own bots. That is largely so it can help repair things that are out in the world. It has inventory space and will collect things that have dropped in the area, because the way that you farm the dark fog is you kill them and they occasionally drop items, and the BAB will actually pick those up for you. It also has a a depot slot on top, so we can actually put a chest on top for extra storage, or use it to bring in some additional units or items via the logistics distributors. So we're going to need a little bit of that. I got the signal towers. We're going to need some ILS. We're going to need some power towers. I got the pile sorters. We're going to need some splitters. And I think this might be everything. We might be... we need some planetary shield generators. So we haven't used these at all because the dark fog is largely just non-existent to us. But what this is going to do is it's going to use the excess energy that we're creating, or that we're not using, and create a kind of defensive bubble to protect us from space. Yes, we're going to have missile turrets, but the thing is the missile turrets are not going to be able to defeat the space enemy before the space hive can actually attack us. So the planetary shield generator is just going to give us a little extra protection while the missile turrets do their job and destroy the dark fog in space. Okay, so other than that, we would probably typically need some extra stuff like power or some of the little logistics bots, and I feel like in editor mode that's not necessary. So let's get in with the blueprint. First off, where do we need to build this? So there are a few pros and cons to this. One of the pros is that once you place this, you literally don't have to think about it again. The only exception is if you kind of see that you are losing some buildings, then you might want to go ahead and upgrade the enhanced structures a little bit. Oh, you know what? I didn't talk about the signal tower. So the signal tower acts as a kind of power pole. So you can see that it is attached and it has a grid around it that is similar to the electrical grid, or not similar, but it is the electrical grid. And then you see this additional ring around the outside. So what that is the signal tower. It's kind of like an irritant to the dark fog. This area is also able to extend the reach of the missile turrets. So you could have missile turrets that are way out of range. So here's the range on the missile turrets, and as long as there's a signal tower somewhere, these missile turrets can actually shoot something all the way over here. That is largely what it's used for, but another thing that it's used for is, well, it has a ton of health. So not only is it an agitator, but it has a lot of health. So it has 3,000 health by default, and compared to the BAB, it's got 750. The implosion cannon has 600. So yeah, you see that there's a couple of things like the planetary shield generator has 1,500, but there's nothing like the signal tower. This thing has a lot of health, and because of that, this is something that we are potentially going to need to replace. This is going to be the first item that you hear is destroyed once the dark fog starts retaliating in numbers and starts gaining in level. So that is the signal tower. And again, it also agitates the dark fog. So if there's a dark fog base in here, the dark fog will just constantly attack. So that is something to keep in mind. Okay, so pros and cons. Like I said, the pros are, once you place this, you really don't have to think about it again until buildings start dying. And then at that point, you can start investing more in the additional health. The cons are that it is such a large blueprint that it's going to take up a large portion of this section. Because we're going to be making it around the equator, it is only going to be usable within this band, and there's not going to be much leeway back and forth. Once you place, it's going to have to be somewhere kind of out here in the middle. And that also means that you can't place it anywhere on any of the poles. And yeah, so that's one of the biggest cons in my opinion. But the pros completely outweigh the cons, as like I said, this is something that you can just place, you can kind of prepare for, and you never have to think about it again. So one other thing that I want to mention deals with, oh my gosh, all these.
Insufficient materials.
Deals with the BAB. So if you open up this tab down here, this is the drop filter settings for the dark fog. Obviously, we don't want to be collecting all of this stuff, and to start, we're largely only going to be using it for the soil. So this is a good way of getting soil over time. Oh. Whatever. There's not a remove all function, I guess. Okay, so now I've removed all the items that are available to be dropped. The ones that we're chasing are items that are kind of behind hidden tech. You don't really unlock them until the dark fog levels, and it only takes one base to have leveled for you to be able to have access to some of these other items. So the first one would be here at level 3. There's another one at, I think, level, I want to say 9. Anyways, the level that you get them doesn't really matter at all. But one thing that I want to show is, let's say that we did want to get some extra, I don't know, antimatter, maybe some grading crystals, and some antimatter fuel rods. One thing that you need to know is that, well, this is completely universal. So if I look at this, those settings are still there. And if I go back to the other one, those settings that I just removed are gone. This is completely global, as it says here, which means that any planet that you're on, if you were to change your mind and say that you wanted to farm something else, this is going to affect all the other babs. All of the other babs are going to be collecting everything that you are saying that they need to collect. So because of that, and because of the potential for accidentally doing something like that, we're also going to be putting filters in every single one of the babs that we make. All right, so now that a lot of that is out of the way, we need to actually make the build. I'm going to go to any meridian. This one is good enough. And I'm just going to place this right in the middle. So this is going to be our main tower, and it's going to be right in the middle. There we go. And I want to make sure that I'm oriented towards the north. So I'm going to hit the N key and make sure that I'm always facing the north. And the reason why is because, well, it's going to help us with placement on certain things. So the next thing that I want is 2 more towers. So I want to put this one as close as I can in the first soft line square, which is going to be here and here. The central tower is going to be the main tower, bringing in certain items. So in the case of what we have in the other planet, we have the Deuteron fuel rods, and a lot of these settings obviously are new. You haven't seen a lot of this before, but yeah. So we want to enable these to make sure that we don't need to enable the drones necessarily. We definitely want to have the vessels. So this is going to remote receive, and that is it. We also want some warpers. How many you bring in is up to you. So this one's a little bit different. We're going to be remote receiving and then locally providing. So I guess in that case, we would need some drones. That way, this could distribute to other ILS that aren't in the area. Now, that being said, even though, yes, we're going to be using some drones, we are also going to be moving this in between the towers. Also, in the sandbox mode, you can actually click this. So if you click the first one, it's going to actually produce everything that you're demanding instantaneously. So this will never drop below 20,000. You can click it again to have it at half. So this actually makes it available to you to use, but also available to receive more for it to disappear. This actually consumes everything. So that is the final section where this would not allow anything to come in, and then click it one last time to go back to normal. So that is what this icon is. So whenever I click this, you can see that these all jump out. Now this is stacked up to 4, and we are the stacking up to 4. Yes, we can do it with pile sorters, but this is not actually a function that we get until later in the game. Even so, I only want these to be 1, so all of these are going to be stacked up to 1. Actually, these don't matter. There's nothing coming out of these towers. So yeah, that is not a big deal. But everything coming out of this tower, I want to have stacked up to 1. Okay, so that is the warpers. We're also going to need some ammo, so this will need to bring in the shell sets, and it will need to bring in the missile sets. I'm just going to be using rank 1. You can use other ranks if you want. The increased ranks, once you acquire them, they do become a lot more costly, but they also level the dark fog quite a bit faster. So this one, as you can see at base, does 220 damage and HP and damage. This one does 45. So this one, at its base, is almost enough to one-shot a dark fog unit. With a little bit of damage increase, which we do have the damage increase, so I think we're at a point where we can still one-shot them. This is fine. But yeah, you can see the difference. This one is 4 times more damaging, so you know what, that's totally up to you. And then obviously as we increase damage, that is the plus 220. Okay, so that is those two, and it really doesn't matter what you set this to, but I would set it on a kind of lower amount, so I'm going to have 1,000. The main thing is that we want to make sure that we don't run out of ammo, and this is largely dependent on, I guess, how far away your dark fog farm is and how fast your vessels can travel. So we're only going to be using, I think it's like 2 per second per build or something like that, so it's not even a significant amount. I have set up a build in our world that I think makes something like 10 per second. So we definitely have enough room to kind of place a few of these. The missile turrets are a little bit different. We don't really need that many missile turrets, missiles. I would even go as low as 200 because the hive is not going to attack us very often. So the missiles are, the missile turrets are largely just not going to be doing anything. Okay, so we need to kind of figure out what's going on here. So the shell sets, we're going to bring those out through this middle section here. And we're going to bring this out to this line here. We're going to go 4 hard tiles out, which brings us to here. And then we're going to place, okay, I get it, thank you.
Insufficient materials.
And then we're going to place a splitter. Now, whether or not you go clockwise or counterclockwise, that's totally up to you. I'm going to be going counterclockwise. And I want to go another 4 tiles out from where the center is. And then place another splitter. Again, it doesn't matter if you're going clockwise or counterclockwise. You just need to make sure and be consistent and do the same thing for each one. I'm not actually sure why this is not. I was about to say, this should be instant. Another advantage to, yeah, there we go. So that's another advantage to Sandbox is once you place something, it is instantly placed. Okay, so this is good for a first ring. And what I mean by that is, well, we're going to have multiple layers of defense. So we're going to go 1 more out. And the reason why is because 1 line of defense it's good enough very early in the game. But later in the game, you are definitely going to want more than 1 line of defense against the dark fog, or offense, I guess I should say, because we're going to be getting right up on them. So we're going to go from each of the splitters, and then this one is going to also wrap back around, and each of the splitters is going to go into the next splitter. And this is kind of the foundation of what it's going to look like for our setup, obviously. So that is going to be the the shell set, and then we're going to have the same thing on this side. The shell sets will come out of 2 sections. That way we can kind of make sure to keep a solid, thorough supply throughout the entire thing. Okay, so I'm going to hit N to make sure that I'm facing towards the north. Okay, so this is going to be left for another item, which is a very, very late game item. Once you get the Dark Fog up to, I think it's level 24, something very high, this will start dropping. So that is going to be this item. I guess I could go ahead and make sure that these are going to be requesting. This is not delivering anything. And this one is requesting. It's probably a good idea to go ahead and make sure that these are set up like this instead of, you know, I like to make blueprints where you kind of manually do it, but once we get to the area where the Dark Fog is, which we're hopefully going to be doing in this episode, it's going to be a little bit longer of an episode. It is what it is. I want to be able to place this down and have things immediately start to happen. So, yeah. All right, so the implosion cannons. Oh my god, can I just... Stop pestering me. Okay, so the implosion cannon. So the way we're going to set these up is, and the reason why we set the belts up first is because you could place these in any direction, but then you might have a situation where, oh, can't have a belt go through there, it can only go through here. But if you place the belt first, then it'll only try to set it up in one of two directions. And if you want, you can make sure to have the cannon facing outward. It really doesn't matter. Anyway, so we're going to get right next to the splitter, and then as close as we can get to that splitter, we're just going to drag this over, and we're going to place 5. And we're going to do that for each of these splitters. It's just going to meet in the middle. Okay, so that is the inside. As for the outside, we're going to be doing the same thing, starting in the same spot. And we're going to be able to place 6, but we want to spread this out just a little bit. Yeah, sure, you could place the 7th one, but then it's not going to line up on the other side. So I'm going to place 6 and then tab, tab, tab. Can I get 4 tabs? Hold on. I can. Okay, so tab 4 times, and then that will be the placement for these. Okay, so now that those are placed, we are going to need some power. So the power is going to start on the corner and just wrap all the way around. This will be power for both the inside and outside, basically almost everything that we have in this section. Okay, so we will get those connected at some point. And speaking of power, so I'm going to orient towards the north again. No, we're not ready for that. Okay, so next up we need the babs. So these are going to be the ones that are kind of collecting the items. So the collecting of the items is largely going to go to these 2 towers on the ends. And we want to make sure that these are facing with the additional outputs facing towards the ILS. And before we copy and paste this, we're actually going to set up a few things. So one, we're going to set this up to bring in precision drones. The reason why I'm doing precision drones is this is kind of like a last, like super last line of defense. We will end up losing some of these, which is fine. We're going to set up a way to bring in more so that these things can have a constant supply, but it is just a little bit of extra kind of, you know, making sure that the dark fog don't get to our valuables, which is going to be the debris that they drop. So this is largely why we needed to have this. We want to be able to filter all of these items down here. So the first one we're going to set up is the energy charge, and we can just actually go ahead and just set uniform. That way we don't have to individually deal with that. So this whole column over here is going to be this yellow one, the core element. Next up is going to be this one here, the dark fog matrix. Then we have the, I believe this one is this one next? It doesn't really matter, so we could just go in order. And the neuropathy, what is that called? Oh, sorry. The gentropy singularity. All right. Gotta love the names. And then last but not least, the matter recombiner. Okay, and the reason why we're setting these filters up is just in case we wanted to add something other than what the dark fog is going to be dropping. We could certainly add that in and then have other babs actually pick these up, because just because we filtered this one doesn't mean that another bab is going to have the same filters. So there you go. This is going to be the same filters, but the stuff in here is not. However, we did set this up ahead of time so that we could shift click this and not have to set those filters again. So we're going to place these all around the area, always facing the additional ports towards the ILS that it is going to be feeding. Okay, and now for setting up some of the belts that are going to be
Insufficient materials.
feeding into the ILS. So first off, the one on the back, this one's going to be a little weird. We're going to take one step back and then come across here and then feed this alongside this belt here. The reason why is because we just need a little bit of extra room. I've already played around with a lot of this, so I do kind of know ahead of time. This is going to go into the last port, and this one is going to go into the middle port. So there are 3 sections here, and we're going to be filtering this one for the yellow. No. This one is the yellow one. And then from here, it pretty much doesn't matter, but we're going to have one in the middle. And then 2 on this side that are coming in over here.
Insufficient materials.
I know, I really wish you could get rid of those. I'm not actually sure if that's possible, but I also haven't looked too much. Anyway, so in the first slot, we're going to have this item, and then in the second slot, we're going to have the matrix. We can delete the excess. Good job, me. Okay, and that is how that is going to look. And hopefully we remember to copy all of these settings, so yeah. And then this is going to be powered by a single pole back here in the back that now is connected to the rest of the grid. And the rest of it we're going to fill out here in a minute, but yeah, I'm going to go ahead and run through this real quick.
Insufficient materials. Light. Light. Insufficient materials.
Okay, so now that that is done, I'm going to reorient towards the north again, and the ILS are obviously also going to need power. So I'm just going to place turrets all around this one. We can do that too for this one. I'm not really too concerned, but we definitely need one for each side. Okay, so that is north. And we're going to need some power, so we're going to take the fusion reactors that we got, and this is largely why we needed this like slight extra space. We're going to place this, and we can get 7 down, I believe. We're going to leave a single space in between the belt over here and the belt over here. At least I think that's how it worked out. Yes. Okay, so we need the deuteron fuel cells. And then these need to get power. I guess we did end up needing some of these. Okay, we just need to make sure that these all actually got their sorters. I know, it can be a little finicky sometimes. Okay, so that one is good. And now we need some missile turrets. So the missile turrets, we're going to place one down because we want to place the missile turrets first, and I want to make sure that the belt placement is going to work out. So this is exactly how it needs to be. So I'm going to shift click and then delete. And we need to leave one space over here, and then we can just drag this through. We should be able to get 15 of these down. So I've got 2 spaces over here and 3 spaces over here. That is perfectly fine. Okay, so this is going to be filtered for the missile sets. And we're just going to drag that through and weave that in. Don't know how that happened, but whatever. There we go. Okay, and then we just need some power. So we're going to give power poles right here, and here. And that'll cover all of those. So this is not going to be enough missile sets. So we're going to also add some on this side. And give these guys some power. Okay, so now everything is kind of connected power-wise. We don't have more than one grid. All of this connected over here. All of it is connected around the area. And what about this final square? So we're going to be doing some extra stuff with this one. We are going to place another ILS. And there's no real good place to put it, so it doesn't really matter if you place it here or you place it here. I'm going to place it right there. It just needs to be far enough away from these. So what is this one going to be used for? Well, we have 5 items here and a 6th one here, so I did mean to set these up. And this one is going to be mirrored. So that is stuff coming in, one going out, a bunch of stuff going out, a bunch more stuff going out. So we obviously don't have any room for anything else, and that's where this is going to come into play. So there's going to be 2 things that we're going to want to import, and one of those is going to be the precision drones, and the other one is going to be the signal towers, because the signal tower is the most likely thing to be destroyed, probably the only thing to be destroyed. So we're going to request in 100 of those, and let's say 200 of these. And there is no providing. So how do we get those into any of these machines? So this is going to, we need a chest first.
Insufficient materials.
So this is going to get a chest, and then we're going to put a logistics distributor on top, give that some bots, and we are going to request in the precision drones. Request in, and then that means that for this we also need to have some precision drones, so we're going to need a smaller chest as well. We're going to limit this to 1. Give it the distributor. And this is going to be the precision drones, and that is going to be allowed to provide to others. That does not give it range, huh? And then the output for this will be the drum. Okay, sorry. We should have made that the inline. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to go ahead and set this up for the other 4, or the other 3 as well. Okay, so since we have all of this flashing, I'm actually going to enable this so that we can stop dealing with the flashing. So we just need to jumpstart that. Come on. Jumpstart. You can do it. Okay, there we go. So it's going to be a little bit lacked on power. Oh, it's actually fine. The ILS would have been... Oh, that's because this one is not connected. That's why. Still pretty close. Alright, so there's still some other things that we have. We have the signal towers as well, so we can just put those in this one over here. Is that seriously on this planet? Nice. I suppose I should have wiped them out first. Okay, so let's actually bring some of this in too, just so we can make sure to test it out. Yay, they are getting all ammoed up. Okay, so I also mentioned that we needed the planetary shield generators, so let's grab some of those. So that is going to go into this slot here, and we're going to go from this corner out to these tiny little squares, and it's going to go right in there. Now we need some signal towers. So these signal towers, we are going to be placing out here on the corners, pretty far out from the stations here. And then we're going to have one in the middle, and then we're going to split the difference here. Also, something else. Usually when you attack the dark fog, the vast majority of the damage that you're going to deal is going to come from one side and probably from one corner. So, just because it's mostly going to come from one corner doesn't mean we're not going to get attacked from somewhere else. So, for the most part, the corner is going to be well defended. Everything else is going to be largely overkill, and that is just going to have to be acceptable. Another thing is that as you start placing this, you might realize that because once you place the blueprint, you can't actually see this outer ring. And you might actually determine, oh man, like I should have gotten a little bit closer. Maybe there's a hive right here. It is 100% in your best interest to actually manually add another signal tower out here, as long as it's still within range. So you can actually set this up to see the range. As long as it's still within range of your attacking units, then it's perfectly fine. And actually preferable that you overlap the dark fog base than to have it just outside. Because what will happen is they will amass units and then attack you all at the same time. And that'll certainly destroy your signal tower and destroy probably a couple of signal towers if your bots get out here fast enough. And yeah, whereas if you had the extra one out that was covering, like let's say that it was here and you needed that extra, then they would attack consistently and it would be a lot less of an issue. You probably won't lose signal towers even though you're going to be attacked consistently. All right, so the last thing that we want is we're going to have some extra babs. So I'm going to place these exactly as close to the signal towers as I can. These are largely going to be, oh, and before I get into that, these are going to be completely filtered for nothing. We're not giving these any of the drones at all. If you did want to actually use these, and I might even, no, we're just going to leave it like this. So we're going to designate maybe 4 of them, maybe 1 on each corner to bring in some signal towers. I'm just going to say maybe this one because the coverage... Okay, maybe the ones just on the inside. That way we can get better coverage, because this one would not be able to... Yeah, so that should be fine. We'll do this one. So this is going to be requesting in signal towers. And these need to be filtered completely unless you're bringing in additional items via these things. So if you did want to bring in some of this other stuff, you could set it up through here. And there is enough room to, well, you'd have to bring it in maybe through here. But there's enough room to squeeze in some belts that would loop all the way around if you wanted. I'm not really worried about it. You could also use the logistics drones if you wanted. So as an example of something like that, like let's say that we wanted them to get the Deuteron fuel rods. That way we're, you know, largely we're not self-sufficient, but you know, we're bringing in our own stuff. Well, then you can have one of these set up in line here. Give this a chest. Have this request in the fuel rods that are being collected from elsewhere. Request from others. And you know what? Screw it. You just leave it wide open. Why not? And then that would actually make sure that you wouldn't even need to import power. So, and I haven't tested that actually. I don't know if you get enough to actually power this whole base. If you did, then you could actually remove this and get a completely extra slot. Extra firepower or an extra ILS over here to bring in more items. You know what? The sky's the limit with a build like this. I like things that are modular, and if, for instance, you did have enough incoming material from, let's say, a bab out here, we could probably do... Yeah, okay, I'm not gonna worry about it. Let's just go ahead and set this up. So these babs are largely going to be doing all of the repairs on the turrets. And that also reminds me, we're going to need to set the filters on the missile turrets. Yeah, like I said, these are largely going to be just repairing. And that is the main purpose of them and why I'm putting them out here on the front with these signal towers. It's a little tedious placing these, but you know what? It is what it is. Again, once we get this thing made, we never have to make another one. This is going to be like the end all of blueprints. A little expensive, but we only have to place 1 or 2 of these. Okay, so let's get some of these other ones set up for signal tower defense, let's say. It probably could have been this one too, but I'm not too concerned. Oh no, this one didn't reach. Yeah, okay, I prefer this one. Oh, and that reminds me, I did not set the chest filter. Yeah, you definitely want to do that. If we didn't do that, then we would bring in a nearly infinite amount of, or not infinite, a very, very large amount of the signal towers. We definitely don't want to do that. Most of these will probably just be sitting there anyways. They won't actually have, like, they'll have the signal turrets, but they won't actually do anything. Okay, so one last thing. I just wanted, we might as well go ahead and utilize this. And then if you wanted some other items, like there is room for 3 others. So you could add in some, you know, you could add in one of these here and bring this in via the bots, or you can do it via the belts. You could also add in this way, so it doesn't have to be like on this side and oops, I don't have room. Or I mean, I guess you technically do here. So yeah, you can add them. It's totally up to you. You could even do some maybe like sushi mix of items per whatever. That's pointless. Anyways, so I'm going to actually go ahead and set this up to kind of collect the Deuteron fuel rods. And again, that's totally up to you whether or not you would do something like that. So I'm going to set this one up. And I don't really care that much for the extra storage. Set that up here. Provide to others. And yeah, so I'm going to just set that up for the rest of these.
Insufficient materials.
Okay, and I do believe that is it for this blueprint. Oh, we did not set up the missile turrets. Okay, so one last thing, the missile turrets. We definitely want to have this turned off for the ground-based. And the main reason why is because we do not want these attacking the dark fog bases. So once we put the signal towers out, assuming that this is going to be interfering with any of the bases, then yeah, we don't want the missiles to attack those. Okay, so I'm going to make a blueprint out of this, and I believe that covers everything. We have the filters set up. We are making sure all of the chests only have 1 slot requesting in, so we're not requesting in like all of our supply over the next many playthroughs of the game. And yeah, okay, so we are going to be using this in the next episode. This was already a very, very long episode. Even with some of the editing that I'm going to do, it's still going to be a very long episode. So that is going to be it for me. I will see you in the next episode, and thanks for watching.